Hi, my name's Daniel Prin. I am a staff writer here with the Movie Buff, and I was able to do some interviews out of South by Southwest this year because we were lucky enough to be able to cover the festival. I just wanted to introduce today's interview, which was for the film Paul Dude's Deadly Lunch Break, which premiered as part of the Narrative Spotlight section at this year's South by Southwest Film Festival. It's one of my favorite films out of the festival. It's a true delight, and I was very glad to be joined by director Nick Gillespie, and who is also a co-writer on the film, and as well as Tom Meeten, who plays Paul Dude in the film, in Paul Dude's Deadly Lunch Break. Yeah, just to notice about spoilers, there is mild spoiler warning in effect, just as we speak of the nature of one death in the film. Um, other, I don't think it takes away from the enjoyment of watching it happen, but if you do not like spoilers, I'll put a note of when in the interview that is discussed. And if you have any comments, leave a comment below, and we can also be found at our website, TheMovieBuff.net. Enjoy. Is it Gillespie or Gillespie?
Gillespie.
Okay.
But right. I get Giuseppe most of the time. I get
okay.
It is
like you Pinocchio? Got it right,
actually. Yes, my nose is going to get longer as well during the interview. No doubt.
Okay, looking forward to it. Okay, Nick Gillespie, writer, director of Paul Dude's Deadly Lunch Break, and Tom Meeten as Paul Dude himself. It's great to have you guys here.
I'm a co-writer.
You're a co-writer.
Matthew White wrote the script, and Brooke Driver was a writer on it as well. But sorry.
No, you're totally good. Thank you. I appreciate you correcting me. Okay, all right. We'll note that since we're recording, it's noted. Okay.
Thank you.
I would love to start with the look of Paul himself. Was the decision to have the fancy sequins always there, or did that come a bit later?
That was always written in as the spangly outfit. That was the words in the script back in 2010 when Matt sent me for the first time. He always wore this spangly outfit, which was always meant to be a bit clumsy. He's like kind of like a crappy superhero, I suppose, that hopefully everyone's rooting for. And Jasmine Adenot, who designed the costumes for the film, we sort of saw that costume, and it was so huge and loud that kind of made the decision to have it more of a sort of slow reveal. So he almost, it's like Superman popping his super symbol. So we gave Paul a couple of different looks that were influenced by, David Bowie was a big influence. There was, other musicians like Michael Stipe, and plenty of films, I think, that I'd watched and thought about and talked about.
Okay. Tom, did you have a favorite outfit?
Yeah, I love the one for the finale. I just think it's great, and I like the way it was sort of hinted at. And about halfway through the film, you see it in a flashback getting made, and then I'm sort of wearing it, but I'm hiding it from just to be too conspicuous, but therefore hiding it from the audience, so you just get glimpses. So I thought that was really well done by Nick and the guys. And wearing sequins wearing sequences. Sequins and sequences was mostly fun, although I did get quite a lot of chafing from the sequins, because I was running around quite a lot and doing quite a lot of action, and sequins don't seem to be made for action sequences. Who'd have thought about that? So yeah, I had a lot of fun herring around in sequins.
I wonder how many people have driven a steamroller wearing a sequin outfit before.
I don't think many, but I'm not convinced I was the first.
You won't be the last.
Somebody somewhere is going to have done that, aren't they? Surely.
We'll never know.
Yeah. No, probably not.
We'll be vague about it, but now that we're on the topic of the steamroller, what was it like getting that sound effect and just the visual of that, like, just right?
It was terrifying. The sound of it on the day was terrifying, and I think that whole that was, the whole thing was designed and written so that it would be, that is a big monstrous sounding beast. It's very, very dangerous. We didn't actually have it moving that much on set. It did a little bit. It had like a sort of forwards backwards run, and then some of the I don't know how I don't want to spoil anything, but some of the kind of VFX, SFX elements of it, we had it stationary and we moved it in post. And the sound designer Martin Pavey, we talked at length about various things in the film, and one was the roar of the steamroller, and we talked about using kind of actual animals, wild animals like lions and things that are hidden low in the mix. And it made this real weird sort of clicking, like whistling sound, which was real, that's in there. So yeah, the sound of it is all real, and it's had stuff added to it. And Tom really did drive it.
I did drive it. Yeah, I got to drive it, and it was sort of slow moving but terrifying, as you'd imagine, because it's just got this. I mean, we all know what a steamroller is, but the enormous weight, and it's like if you did veer. And when I was driving it, I felt like if you did veer, I would crush cars, buildings, people, and entire society. I could crush. It just felt like this unstoppable force, like sort of, yeah. So quite a thrill, actually. Quite thrilling. You can never get them particularly fast, but I felt like I could slip, like a sequin might have got caught on the gear stick, and I slipped and ploughed into the church that we were filming next to. That was what was going through my head as I was driving it. But yeah, quite a thrill. Recommended. 10 out of 10. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10.
Generous. Did you need a special license to drive it?
No. Well, no. I mean, I don't know, but maybe we're officially supposed to. But no, I just had a quick lesson from a sort of rather nervous man who was. What happened was it was sort of set, like, even though I was sort of fantasizing, like Paul Dude might, about sort of accidentally killing people and being a bit terrified. It was set in its thing, and you couldn't actually steer it, and it was set in its speed. So yeah, it would have been, utterly awful for if in real life I'd have caught sort of Nick's trouser leg as he was trying to film, and he actually got crushed.
Pulled me down.
Yeah,
the whole scene. Yeah. We did it. It was all done on private property. We had a health and safety briefing and things like that. But I agree with Tom. It was quite terrifying. It was based on the scene, sort of, and it wasn't copied or anything. But there's a scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones has a fight with the guy in the plane, turns around very slowly, and it was the speed of that scene that's what I was interested in. That this scene was so slow moving, and it's like, why don't these people just jump out of the way? And I guess they're kind of rabbits caught in headlights.
Okay. I definitely got Austin Powers vibes, and a little bit of Who Framed Roger Rabbit too.
Yes. Yeah, and A Fish Called Wanda. It's funny because anytime you make a film, especially one like this, your internet search history gets so weird and bizarre of how you kind of research and writing and making, so that you've got things ingrained in your head that have influenced you. And I watched a lot of films, and I knew this. It's hard to do anything original, but trying to find references for Tristan Versus, who made some of the prosthetic heads, and for Colin Smith, who did a lot of the SFX work, and trying to find references and say, well, this is what that would look like. You can really start Googling some really bad stuff. So, but there's thankfully not so much material about steamrollers running people over. There was not so much of that.
There's probably a weird fetish site somewhere, isn't there? Some sort of weird fetish for steamroller, not necessarily steamroller. Exactly. Flatpeople.com.
Flatpeople.org/steamroller.
Exactly.
Also, I wanted to talk a bit about the audition as well. Tom, did you rehearse for that, or did you just feel it on the day?
we didn't really have that much. I mean, me and Nick did a little bit of rehearsal, but due to the nature of, as often the way with these things, we didn't have that much time to properly rehearse. And then we went through it a couple of times on the day before we filmed it. So in that sense, there was a bit of rehearsal. But as with the finale, it was quite sort of, me and Nick talked about it quite a lot, but it was also quite improvised, and certainly the physical stuff. That was me. I've done quite a lot of physical comedy over the years, and so I was sort of drawing on that ridiculous, stupid dancing that I'm able to do, some sort of magical gift to do stupid dancing. So that quite a lot of that was improvised, and then Nick was also very encouraging of improv. We would do a version of the script, and then we would riff one. And Kevin Bishop, who plays Jack Tapp, I've worked with Kevin quite a few times over the years, and he is a phenomenal and terrifying improviser. I'm sure a lot of the stuff he said was immediately cut by Nick because it was too outrageous, but he's a brilliant person to improvise with. So that, particularly that audition scene, was a lot of fun. Yeah, I loved it.
Yes, it was. And just to touch on the sort of performance element of Tom, I think he completely smashed it. But I didn't want. I was quite down with that. We weren't able to sort of physically rehearse it too much. But I think for Paul and his actual talent level, I think if that had been too good, it might not work. That was my sort of fear of it, I think. And
that's why you hired me, because
I'm talking myself into it.
I know exactly. You're right.
You know what I mean? Though it's like,
yeah, no,
you don't want to turn up and be like Michael Jackson or something, or some, Justin Timberlake. Or
I think that's what Paul's. I think Paul is. This is what I fundamentally think about him, is that he isn't that talented, really. He's just very enthusiastic, and he goes for it. And I think and hope that sort of comes across, because that's what I was like, and just going for it. And I think you're absolutely right, Nick. He didn't want him to suddenly be like this swan, the ugly duckling to a swan, where you're like, oh my God, which often happens in films, where something incredible happens. And I think we might have talked about, we dismissed it quite quickly, but getting a stunt double who might be able to do a, somersault or something dressed in my outfit. But I think it was quickly dismissed, wasn't it? So I think you're right. Anyway, yeah, enthusiasm. No talent, just enthusiasm. That's what I'm all about.
Talented enthusiasm.
Perfect casting.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, there's Paul could definitely have I felt like there was a villain origin story here, but he's still likable throughout the film. Was there a challenge of just maintaining that likability throughout?
I think it's a lot in the writing, really, and I think because you sort of you see him. Well, to start off with, be bullied, and then you see him sort of. We see him with his mum that you I think that generates sympathy and likability in a way. So and that's just to do with the script, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's just a well-written character within a script. I don't know, Nick might add something different, but that's how I felt about it.
I think he's a victim of, circumstance in a lot of it, and a lot of he's bullied. Things happen to him, and it doesn't justify anything in real life. The film's very heightened, and it is a very dark. It's a comedy, albeit dark in places. But I think all of these people, hopefully, at the point in the story when we see them get their comeuppance in varied ways, I would always be on the side of Paul, I think.
Okay.
I like all of the characters. I don't think there's any point really, because it's close to me in that it's a film, and I know that it's not none of it's real. So there's no point where I felt, it's a shame that happened to that ticket inspector or whatnot.
Yeah. They all deserve it. And also, he doesn't actually, that's one of the other clever things about the script, and how Nick realized it, is that he doesn't actually, the intent is there, but he doesn't actually kill them. So that's sort of, a clever angle on it, I thought. Because if he was actually killing these people in a malicious way, then you might start to feel differently about him, I suppose. Which is another interesting idea in itself, isn't it? A character that you might really like, and then they're actually horrifically evil. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's always interesting though, because you know, if you look at a film like Silence of the Lambs, for example, Hannibal Lecter is he's a protagonist in a way. He's a bad guy. He's an antagonist, but in a way, you kind of walk away. Maybe I'm just twisted, but you walk away thinking, "Wow, what a cool character!" Like I was kind of rooting for him in a sense, maybe in the sequel. And then more recently, you've got films like Joker, which is a similar sort of thing. And Joker, I thought was fantastic. We watched that after we'd shot Paul Dude and after we'd cut most of it. And somebody said, "Wow, your film's going to be like that Joker film." And I thought, what? But that all came later. But there's plenty of films with sort of bad antagonists. Anti-heroes, yeah. I mean, Paul's more of he's an underdog, really. He's not any sort of hero. He strives for fame because he thinks that's what's going to make all of his problems go away, and actually, ironically, becomes famous for something else. And I guess, at that point, in my mind, he doesn't really need it anymore,
So you guys are talking about like how it's kind of like Joker and all that, like, but if you had to put it in one genre, like, is there one you could put it in? I've thought like black comedy sans kind of like road trip elements, even in the beginning. Where would you put it? What basket would you guys put it in?
Biopic? No. It does morph between a few different things. I think it was initially always an action comedy, and there are dark elements. So, I'm not really clearly answering your question as such. I think comedy is so broad. A lot of it is down to whether or not it's funny. It's like if a horror film's not scary, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad horror film. It's a different kind of horror film. There's so many subgenres. So I think, I think dark comedy, action comedy. There are more so in people have started watching it and talking more about horror elements, which I'd not officially sort of sat down and thought this is going to have horror elements. There are horrible moments in it, which are followed by some form of
You have one nod, don't you, to the horror genre in the Johnny Vegas's waitress scene, which where she springs me, and I Nick on the day. I got a jump scare on the day because Nick didn't tell me that she was going to do that. I distinctly remember Nick saying, "Okay, just do another one," and then me having this suspicion, and then she brilliantly jumped out, and it's utterly terrifying. But it's a sort of, I think you're right. I think it's comedy, but then it's brilliant to not quite know. I think is a brilliant thing because it makes it a bit of a thrilling watch, And the things, okay, well, this is a light comedy. Oh, hold on. That sort of keeps your interest as well. I think where you're not 100% sure where it's going to go. I suppose. And as Nick said, a lot of horror films that do that, I think it's really interesting, and that sort of crossing over of genres makes it quite an exciting watch, hopefully.
I've been watching a lot of John Carpenter films recently. I'm a big fan of his work, and I think his films are banging genre films that do blur the lines of comedy. Like I think in that, a film like They Live, for example, or even Big Trouble in Little China, it's also heightens the dialogue. Once you get the comedy of it, it's hilarious. I mean, I like those. There's no reference in that for Paul Dude, but I'm quietly trying to think of other examples.
Okay, I think that's my time though. So Nick Gillespie, or Giuseppe, writer and co-writer and director of Paul Dude's Deadly Lunch Break, and Tom Meeten as Paul Dude. Thank you guys so much for chatting with me.
Thank you, Daniel.
Cheers, Daniel.